The story of the Ottoman Empire begins in the rugged lands of Anatolia at the turn of the 14th century, when a small frontier principality under the leadership of Osman, son of Ertugrul, started to rise among the many Turkish tribes who had migrated westward after the collapse of the Seljuk Sultanate. Osman's courage, vision, and devotion to Islam inspired his warriors, and from his name the dynasty that would rule for more than 6 centuries became known as the Ottomans. In its earliest days, the Ottoman state was not the mighty empire history remembers but a modest beylik constantly fighting Byzantine outposts, rival Turkish chieftains, and Mongol pressures from the east. Yet Osman and his successors combined shrewd strategy with religious zeal, presenting themselves as ghazis, warriors of faith, which attracted more tribesmen, scholars, and artisans to their cause. Their early victories in northwestern Anatolia laid the foundation for expansion into Byzantine territories. After Osman, his son Orhan consolidated power, capturing the important city of Bursa in 1326, which became the first real capital of the Ottomans. Bursa's fall symbolized more than a military triumph. It marked the emergence of a state that began adopting administrative systems, coinage, and organized laws. Orhan encouraged trade and welcomed scholars, which gave the Ottomans a reputation of order and prosperity compared to surrounding principalities. His marriage alliances with powerful neighbors, including a Byzantine princess, also showed the diplomatic skill that would remain a hallmark of the dynasty. In the following decades, the Ottomans expanded steadily, crossing into Europe in 1354 after the earthquake-damaged Gallipoli fortress fell into their hands. This foothold on the European continent opened a new chapter, one that would change the fate of the Balkans forever. The reign of Murad I pushed Ottoman power deeper into Europe. By defeating a coalition of Balkan rulers at the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, the Ottomans demonstrated their rising dominance, though Murad himself was killed on the battlefield. His successor Bayezid I, called Yildirim or Thunderbolt, expanded the empire with great speed, besieging Constantinople and defeating crusading armies at Nicopolis. Yet destiny turned when the conqueror Timur defeated Bayezid at the Battle of Ankara in 1402. The empire plunged into civil war as Bayezid's sons fought for control. For more than a decade, chaos threatened to undo everything, but eventually Mehmed I restored unity, re-establishing the Ottoman state on firm footing. The true transformation of the Ottomans into a world empire, however, came under Sultan Mehmed II, later called Fatih, or the Conqueror. In 1453, Mehmed achieved the dream that had eluded Muslim rulers for centuries, the conquest of Constantinople. After a 53-day siege, massive cannons and brilliant tactics breached the Theodosian walls, and the city that had been the jewel of Byzantium became the new capital of the Ottoman Empire, renamed Istanbul. This event marked the end of the Middle Ages in many historians' eyes and established the Ottomans as heirs not only to Islamic civilization but also to the Roman imperial tradition. Mehmed reorganized administration, welcomed diverse peoples, and established Istanbul as a cosmopolitan hub where Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived under the millet system, each community governed by its own religious leaders under Ottoman oversight. In the 16th century, the empire reached its zenith under Suleiman, remembered as the Magnificent, in the West and Kanuni, the lawgiver, in the Islamic world. Suleiman's reign blended military triumphs, legal reforms, architectural splendor, and cultural flowering. His armies advanced deep into Hungary, reached the gates of Vienna, and dominated the Mediterranean after defeating Christian fleets at Preveza. In the east, they challenged the Safavid Empire of Persia, while in the Red Sea and Indian Ocean, Ottoman navies clashed with Portuguese fleets, asserting influence over trade routes. Suleiman's empire stretched across 3 continents, encompassing diverse peoples and cultures under one banner. He codified laws that balanced Sharia with administrative needs, ensuring justice and stability. His court became a center of art, poetry, calligraphy, and architecture, with masterpieces such as the Süleymaniye Mosque rising in Istanbul. Yet even at its height, the empire faced challenges. Succession struggles within the royal family, corruption among officials, and the increasing independence of provincial governors hinted at future decline. After Suleiman's death, later sultans struggled to match his vision and leadership. Still, the empire remained formidable. It survived wars with Europe, managed revolts, and adapted to changing times. The Ottoman administrative system, with its Timar land grants, Janissary corps, and elaborate bureaucracy, functioned for centuries. The Janissaries, originally elite slave soldiers loyal only to the Sultan, became a powerful force both militarily and politically, though their influence eventually turned into a burden. The 17th century saw both resilience and strain. The empire expanded into Crete, fought long wars with Austria and Poland, and maintained control of the Middle East. However, defeats like the failed siege of Vienna in 1683 symbolized the end of Ottoman expansion in Europe. From that moment, European states increasingly pushed the empire back. The Treaty of Karlowitz in 1699 forced the Ottomans to cede significant territories, marking the beginning of what many historians call the empire's long decline. Despite setbacks, the empire endured because of its flexibility. Ottoman rulers attempted reforms, known as Tanzimat in the 19th century, which sought to modernize the military, bureaucracy, and education. European-style institutions were introduced, and the empire tried to industrialize. However, pressure from European powers, rising nationalism among subject peoples, and internal resistance weakened these efforts. The Balkans became restless, with Greeks, Serbs, Bulgarians, and others seeking independence. The empire's nickname, the Sick Man of Europe, reflected both its lingering power and its evident fragility. Throughout the 19th century, the Ottomans navigated a complex game of diplomacy, allying at times with Britain and France to counter Russian ambitions, as seen in the Crimean War. At home, sultans like Mahmud II abolished the Janissaries and attempted centralization. The empire saw the construction of railways, telegraphs, and new schools, but also mounting debt to European creditors. Social tensions grew as reforms disrupted traditional structures. Intellectuals debated constitutionalism, modernization, and the future of the state. The Young Turk movement eventually emerged, demanding parliamentary rule and national revival. By the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire had shrunk considerably, losing North African provinces and much of the Balkans. The Balkan Wars further reduced its European holdings, leaving Istanbul and a small strip of Thrace as the empire's last possessions in Europe. Then came the First World War, a conflict that sealed the empire's fate. Aligning with Germany and Austria-Hungary, the Ottomans fought on multiple fronts. While victories such as Gallipoli in 1915 boosted morale and showcased the brilliance of leaders like Mustafa Kemal, defeats in the Arab Revolt and the Mesopotamian and Palestinian campaigns drained the empire. By 1918, the empire lay exhausted, occupied by Allied forces, and facing partition under the Treaty of Sèvres. Yet the story of the Ottoman Empire did not end in complete oblivion. Out of its ashes rose the Republic of Turkey under Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who abolished the Sultanate in 1922 and the Caliphate in 1924. The 6th-century legacy of the Ottomans left profound marks on the Middle East, the Balkans, and beyond. Their architecture, cuisine, legal traditions, and cultural influences continue to shape societies. Istanbul remains a city of global importance, carrying memories of both Byzantine and Ottoman grandeur. The Ottoman Empire was not merely a political state, it was a civilization that blended traditions of East and West, Islam and Christianity, Asia and Europe. It represented both conquest and coexistence, both glory and tragedy. For centuries, its sultans dreamed of universal rule, and though their empire eventually faded, their story remains one of the most remarkable chapters in world history, a tale of resilience, ambition, and transformation that still echoes in the lands once under the banner of the Crescent.